The email in my sent folder wasn't the one I sent. I had written a clear, professional summary of our Q3 budget analysis. What the executive team received was confrontational, defensive, and bordered on insubordinate. They forwarded it back to me with concern. I'm Megan, a senior financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm in Denver. For 6 years, I'd built a reputation on precision and professionalism. My reports were thorough. My communication was measured. I didn't make careless mistakes. Until 3 weeks ago, when I apparently started making them constantly. The first incident happened on a Tuesday. I sent my quarterly risk assessment to the CFO's office. Clean language, clear recommendations, standard format I'd used for years. 2 hours later, I received a reply from the CFO's assistant asking me to reconsider my tone. I opened my sent folder. The email looked identical. Same subject line, same timestamp, same attachments. But when I read the body text, entire paragraphs had been reworded. Professional suggestions had become demands. Neutral observations had become accusations. I sat at my desk and read it 3 times. I hadn't written those words. My direct manager, Stephen, called me into his office that afternoon. He closed the door and sat across from me with a printed copy of the email. "This isn't like you," he said. I agreed, because it wasn't me. "I don't know what's going on," he continued, "but you need to be more careful. The CFO wasn't happy." I nodded. I apologized. I left his office with the printed email in my hand. That night, I went back through my sent folder. I compared every recent email to my drafts folder, to my notes, to my memory of what I'd actually written. 4 emails had been altered, all sent within the past 3 weeks, all after they left my outbox, all in ways that made me look unprofessional, aggressive, or careless. Someone had access to my account. Someone was editing my communication after I sent it. And my manager had been the one to call me in every single time. I didn't confront him. I didn't ask him about the emails. I didn't mention my suspicions to anyone in the office. I arrived on time every morning at 7:45. I completed my assignments. I responded politely in meetings. I kept my expressions neutral. But I changed my process entirely. Every email I sent, I now blind copied to my personal account. Every draft, every revision, every final version. I kept copies outside the company server. I began taking screenshots of emails before I hit send, noting the exact timestamp and wording in a separate document. I also started tracking Stephen's movements. He arrived at 8:15 most mornings. He stopped at the coffee station near the elevator at 8:25. He left his office unlocked when he went to the break room at 10:30. He attended the weekly leadership meeting every Thursday from 2 to 4. He made personal phone calls around 3 most afternoons, always with his door closed. And he always stayed late on Tuesdays. On Wednesday morning, I sent a routine project update to the VP of Operations. Professional, factual. 3 short paragraphs summarizing our progress on the client acquisition system we'd been developing for the past quarter. I checked my personal email 2 hours later. The version in my corporate sent folder had been altered. A sentence about projected timelines had been reworded to sound like I was questioning the VP's priorities. A neutral observation about resource allocation now read like a complaint about inadequate support. I saved both versions. I labeled them clearly with timestamps. I stored them in a folder on my personal cloud drive titled Email Discrepancies, September. Stephen called me in the next morning. "We need to talk about yesterday's email," he said. I nodded and sat down across from him. "The VP wasn't happy with your tone. He felt like you were pushing back on his direction." "I wasn't," I said. Well, that's how it came across. You need to think about how your words are being received. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I apologized and told him I'd be more careful with my phrasing. He leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. I'm starting to worry about you, Megan. This isn't the quality of work I'm used to seeing from you. You've been with us for 6 years. Your performance has always been solid. But lately, something's off. I understand, I said. I'm going to need to document this conversation. It's the 3rd incident in a month. If this continues, we'll need to have a more serious discussion about your future here. Of course. He watched me for a moment, as if expecting more. Resistance, emotion, justification, an explanation for why my emails kept causing problems. I gave him nothing. All right, he said finally. You can go. I returned to my desk and opened a new document on my personal laptop that evening. I titled it Timeline, Stephen Matthews. I listed every altered email with dates and times, every meeting he'd called, every comment he'd made about my performance, every time he'd expressed concern. I worked quietly for the rest of the week. On Friday afternoon, another email was changed. This time, it was a response to a client inquiry about our fee structure. I'd written a polite, detailed explanation of our revised pricing model and how it would benefit their portfolio management needs. What the client received included a sentence that suggested they didn't understand basic financial terms. The client forwarded it to Stephen with a note expressing confusion about my condescending tone and asking if perhaps someone else should handle their account. Stephen forwarded it to me without comment. I saved everything. I also began noting the pattern in my timeline document. Every altered email was followed within 24 hours by a conversation with Stephen. Every conversation included language about my declining performance. Every interaction was documented by him in some way. An email follow-up, a note in my file, a comment to HR. He was building a case against me. By the end of September, I had 7 altered emails documented. All of them changed after I'd sent them. All of them making me look careless, aggressive, or unprofessional. All of them followed by meetings with Stephen, where he expressed disappointment and concern. I also noticed something else. The emails were always altered between 30 minutes and 2 hours after I sent them. Never immediately, never the next day, always within that specific window of time. I began testing the pattern more deliberately. On October 3rd, I sent an internal memo at 9:47 in the morning. It was addressed to 3 department heads, summarizing our quarterly audit findings. Professional language, clear recommendations, standard format. I checked my personal copy of the email at 10:15. No changes yet. I checked again at 10:45. Still unchanged. I checked at 11:30. The memo had been altered. A line about procedural efficiency now included the phrase, "unlike some departments," which completely changed the meaning and made it sound like I was criticizing other teams. The change had occurred sometime between 10:45 and 11:30. I checked Stephen's calendar. He'd been in his office during that entire window. No meetings scheduled. His door had been closed. I documented the timing in my spreadsheet. On October 5th, I tested again. I sent a brief email to a client at 2:15 in the afternoon. I monitored it every 15 minutes. The email was altered at 3:35. Stephen had been in his office, alone. I continued testing throughout the week. Every pattern confirmed the same thing. The alterations happened during specific windows when Stephen was alone in his office with his door closed. I documented everything. On October 12th, Stephen scheduled another meeting. This time, Patricia from HR was present. They sat across from me in a small conference room with printed copies of my recent emails spread across the table. "Megan," Stephen began, We've seen a significant decline in your communication skills over the past several weeks. The tone, the language, the way you're interacting with clients and colleagues. It's not meeting our standards. Patricia slid a document across the table toward me. This is a formal performance improvement plan. 60 days. We'll be monitoring your emails and client interactions closely during this period. You'll have weekly check-ins with Stephen to discuss your progress. If we don't see substantial improvement, we'll need to discuss next steps, which could include reassignment or termination. I read through the document slowly. It outlined specific expectations for professional communication. It referenced the altered emails as evidence of my performance issues. It required me to submit drafts of important emails to Stephen for review before sending. It mandated weekly one-on-one meetings to discuss my tone and approach. It was thorough. It was formal. It was designed to create a paper trail. I picked up the pen Patricia had placed beside the document. "Do you have any questions about the plan?" she asked. "No," I said. "Do you understand the expectations we've outlined?" "Yes." "And you agree to participate in this improvement process?" "Yes." I signed the document without objection. I dated it. I slid it back across the table. Stephen looked almost disappointed, as if he'd expected me to argue, to push back, to give him another reason to document my resistance. I gave him nothing. Patricia collected the signed form and placed it in a folder. "We'll schedule your first check-in for next Monday at 9. Stephen will send you a calendar invitation." "Thank you," I said. I stood. I left the conference room. I returned to my desk and continued working on the quarterly forecast I'd been developing. That evening, I went home and opened my personal laptop. I reviewed my documentation. 7 altered emails. 3 weeks of observations. Clear patterns in timing and behavior. But I needed more than patterns. I needed proof. The next day, I submitted a request to IT. I framed it carefully. I didn't mention suspicions or accusations. I explained that I'd noticed some of my sent emails appeared different when recipients forwarded them back to me. Minor wording changes. Small discrepancies. I asked if there might be a formatting problem with my email client or a syncing issue with the mail server. I kept the tone professional and technical. Just an employee reporting a potential glitch. The IT ticket was assigned to Marcus Chen, a senior systems administrator I'd worked with on a database integration project 2 years earlier. We'd spent 3 weeks troubleshooting data migration issues. He was thorough. He was detail-oriented. He didn't make assumptions. He responded to my ticket within an hour. "I'll take a look at your account. Might be a client-side rendering issue or something with the Exchange server. I'll run some diagnostics and get back to you by end of week." I thanked him and returned to my work. 3 days passed. I attended my first performance check-in with Stephen. He reviewed my recent emails. He critiqued my word choices. He suggested I use softer language, more collaborative phrasing, less direct statements. I took notes. I agreed with his feedback. I thanked him for his guidance. He seemed satisfied. On Friday afternoon, Marcus sent me a meeting invitation. Email account review. 15 minutes. We met in a small office near the server room on the 3rd floor. He closed the door and opened his laptop. "I ran the diagnostics you asked for," he said. "Found something interesting." He turned the screen toward me. I saw rows of log entries, timestamps, user IDs, access codes. "Your account has administrative access logs that shouldn't be there. Someone with elevated privileges has been accessing your mailbox. Not just reading, editing." I kept my expression neutral. "Editing?" "Yeah, the logs show mailbox item modifications. Specifically, sent items. The changes are being made post-send, which is unusual. Most people don't even know that's possible without specialized admin access. Can you tell who accessed it?" He exhales sharply. He scrolls through the logs and points to a user ID. "The access is coming from an admin account, Stephen Matthews." I didn't react. Marcus looked at me carefully. Did you authorize him to access your email? No. That's what I thought. He paused. This is a pretty serious policy violation. Managers aren't supposed to have admin-level access to employee mailboxes unless there's a documented business need and HR approval. And they definitely aren't supposed to be editing sent messages. That's a data integrity issue. What happens now? I asked. Technically, I'm supposed to report this to information security. Unauthorized access to email accounts is a compliance issue, especially in a financial services firm. We're subject to SEC oversight. The auditors would have a field day with this. I nodded slowly. I'd like you to do that. You sure? This could get messy. IT investigations involve interviews, log reviews, potentially legal. Steven's going to know the report came from your ticket. I'm sure. Marcus closed his laptop. I'll file the report today. InfoSec will probably start an investigation next week. They'll pull all the access logs, review every modification, interview everyone involved. It might take a few weeks to complete. That's fine. Megan, he said quietly, you should probably loop in HR or the compliance office yourself. If this goes where I think it's going, you'll want it on record that you reported it independently. Protects you if things escalate. I will, I said. We stood. He opened the door. For what it's worth, he said, I've never seen anything like this before. Someone going into another person's mailbox and changing their emails after they've been sent? That's not just a policy violation. That's deliberate sabotage. I thanked him and left. That afternoon, I drafted an email to the chief compliance officer. I kept it factual. I explained that IT had discovered unauthorized administrative access to my email account. I explained that my sent messages had been altered without my knowledge or consent. I attached the IT ticket number and requested a formal review under the company's data integrity policy. I read it 3 times before sending. I blind copied it to my personal account. The CCO responded Monday morning. We'll be opening an internal investigation. Please do not discuss this matter with anyone in your department until the review is complete. We'll be in touch within the next few days to schedule an interview. I confirmed receipt and continued my work. For 2 weeks, nothing visible happened. I attended my weekly check-ins with Steven. I submitted my reports. I responded to his feedback on my communication style with professional courtesy. I made the revisions he suggested. I thanked him for his continued guidance. I didn't mention the investigation. I didn't change my routine. I didn't give any indication that anything was different. He seemed pleased with my progress. He mentioned in our 3rd check-in that he was seeing improvement in my tone, that I seemed more receptive to feedback, that he was hopeful we could get my performance back on track. I nodded and thanked him. But I was documenting every conversation, every email, every suggestion he made. I was building my own timeline of his behavior during the investigation period. On November 1st, I received a calendar invitation from the Chief Compliance Officer. Investigation interview, confidential. Scheduled for 2 o'clock that afternoon. Steven received one scheduled for 3:30. I arrived at the executive floor conference room 5 minutes early. The CCO was there with the General Counsel and the VP of Information Security. They had 3 laptops open, printed logs, email comparisons, a timeline spreadsheet projected on the screen. They asked me to sit. We've completed our preliminary review, the CCO said. The evidence is clear. Your manager, Stephen Matthews, accessed your mailbox 17 times over a 6-week period using administrative credentials. He modified 12 sent emails. The modifications were substantive and material, changing the tone, meaning, and intent of your communication. The general counsel leaned forward. This is a serious violation of company policy. It's also potentially a violation of federal regulations. We're a regulated financial institution. Email integrity is not optional. Every communication we send is subject to audit and legal discovery. Tampering with sent messages creates liability for the firm. What happens next? I asked. We're terminating Mr. Matthews' employment effective immediately, the CCO said. We're also removing the performance improvement plan from your file and issuing a formal apology. Additionally, we'll be conducting a broader audit of administrative access across the company to ensure this hasn't happened to anyone else. I nodded. We want to be very clear, the CCO continued, that you did nothing wrong. Your original communication was professional and appropriate. The issues documented in your performance improvement plan were fabricated through Mr. Matthews' unauthorized modifications to your sent emails. Thank you, I said. The general counsel slid a document across the table. We'd like you to sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding the specific details of this investigation. In exchange, we're offering a compensation adjustment to reflect the professional distress this situation caused, as well as a formal letter of commendation for your personnel file. I read through the agreement carefully. The compensation adjustment was significant. The NDA was standard. I could discuss the general outcome, but not the investigative details or the specific findings. The letter of commendation acknowledged my professionalism throughout the investigation and confirmed that my performance record had been corrected. I signed the agreement. We apologize for what you went through, the CCO said. This should never have happened. Your response to this situation was exemplary. You documented the issues, you followed proper reporting channels, and you maintained your professionalism throughout. I appreciate that, I said. The VP of Information Security spoke for the first time. We're also implementing new controls on administrative email access. Going forward, any access to employee mailboxes will require dual authorization and will be logged in a separate audit system. I thanked them and stood. You'll be reporting directly to the CFO's office until we assign a replacement manager, the CCO said. That should happen within the next 2 weeks. I returned to my desk an hour later. Stephen's office was already empty. His desk had been cleared. His computer was gone. The nameplate outside his door had been removed. Patricia from HR sent a company-wide email at 4:15. Stephen Matthews is no longer with the company effective today. Megan Foster will be reporting directly to the CFO's office until a replacement manager is assigned. Please direct any questions to HR. No one asked questions. No one mentioned it in the break room. No one stopped by my desk. The office continued as if nothing had happened. The following week, I received a formal letter from the executive team. It was signed by the CEO, the CFO, and the general counsel. It outlined the findings of the compliance investigation in general terms. It confirmed that my performance record had been corrected and that all documentation related to the performance improvement plan had been removed from my file. It thanked me for my professionalism and cooperation during the investigation. I filed it with the rest of my documentation at home. The week after that, the CFO called me into her office. I've been reviewing your work, she said. Your analysis is consistently excellent. Your communication is clear and professional. Your quarterly forecasts have been accurate within 2% for the past 3 years. I don't know what Stephen was thinking. Thank you, I said. We're promoting you to lead financial analyst effective immediately. You'll be managing a team of 3 analysts and reporting directly to me. The pay increase is retroactive to November 1st. She slid an offer letter across her desk. The salary was 20% higher than my current rate. The title came with additional benefits and a performance bonus structure. I read through it carefully. This is generous, I said. It's appropriate, she replied. You've earned it. And frankly, we should have promoted you 2 years ago. Stephen kept recommending we wait, said you weren't ready for leadership. Looking back at your performance record, that assessment was completely unfounded. I signed the offer letter. You'll start transitioning into the role next week, she said. We're hiring your replacement as senior analyst. You'll help with the interview process if you're willing. I'm willing, I said. She stood and extended her hand. Welcome to the leadership team. Over the next month, I settled into my new role. I met with my team. I reviewed their work. I provided feedback and guidance. I attended leadership meetings with the CFO and the other department heads. No one mentioned Stephen. No one asked what had happened. The company moved forward as if he'd never been there. In early December, I received an email from Marcus in IT. Wanted to let you know the audit is complete. We found 2 other instances of managers accessing employee mailboxes without authorization. Both have been addressed. The new access controls are in place. Thanks for reporting the issue. You probably saved us from a major compliance problem. I thanked him and filed the email. On my last day before the holiday break, I sat at my desk after everyone else had left. The office was quiet. The lights in most sections had dimmed to evening mode. I opened my personal laptop and navigated to the folder titled Email Discrepancies, September. I reviewed the contents one last time. 7 altered emails. 3 weeks of documentation. Timestamps, screenshots, the timeline I'd built tracking Stephen's patterns. I'd kept it all as insurance, as proof, as evidence of what had happened. But I didn't need it anymore. I selected the entire folder and moved it to trash. I emptied the trash. I closed the laptop. I gathered my things and walked to the elevator. The building was nearly empty. My footsteps echoed in the hallway. I thought about Stephen, about the performance improvement plan he'd put me on, about the case he'd been building, about how confident he'd seemed in those weekly check-ins. He'd underestimated my silence. He'd thought compliance meant weakness. He'd thought my lack of reaction meant I hadn't noticed. He'd thought I was too afraid or too confused to do anything about it. He was wrong. I didn't need to confront him. I didn't need to argue in meetings or defend myself in emails. I didn't need to make a scene or demand explanations. I just needed to document what he'd done and wait for the right people to see it. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the ground floor. I walked out of the office at 5:30, the same way I'd walked in every day for 6 years. Calm, professional, unremarkable.